The road to the bees that never opened is the best way to understand why Asal Uttar mattered beyond the wreckage of tanks in the fields. Pakistan's armored plan in the Khem Karan sector was not designed merely to seize a border town or win a local duel with Indian armor. Its deeper promise lay in the possibility of breaking through toward Bhikhiwind, Harike, and the Beas-Sutlej water system, where bridges, roads, and river crossings could create a much larger crisis for India. That road never became the path of exploitation Pakistan needed. It remained a possibility, then a danger, and finally a closed door. The importance of Asal Uttar lies in that closing. If you would like to move beyond the podcast, you can see my available books at militaryauthor.me. And at trackpads.com, you will find magazines and galleries with hundreds of thousands of photos and videos to explore. To follow the idea without a map, imagine Khem Karan as a forward doorway near the border. Beyond it, routes led into Indian Punjab, toward Bhikhiwind, and then toward the area around Harike, where major waters and crossings made movement strategically sensitive. Rivers and canals matter in war because they organize the movement of armies. They can protect a defender, delay an attacker, or become choke points where panic and congestion spread. A force that reaches such crossings at speed may create a crisis out of proportion to the distance advanced. A force stopped before reaching them may find that its dramatic armored thrust has gained ground without gaining decision. Asal Uttar was fought in the space between those two outcomes. The Pakistani hope was that armor could turn tactical penetration into operational shock. If tanks broke through the Indian defense and drove quickly toward the Bees line, Indian commanders would have to react across a wider area. They might need to shift reserves, protect crossings, destroy bridges, reorganize supply routes, and reassure a civilian population suddenly threatened by deep armored movement. Even if Pakistan could not hold every mile indefinitely, the psychological and operational disruption might have been enormous. That is why the thrust was so dangerous. It aimed at the defender's depth, not just the defender's front. In armored warfare, depth is where a local defeat can become a campaign crisis. A careful counterfactual must begin by admitting uncertainty. It is impossible to say with confidence that a Pakistani breakthrough to Harike or the Beas crossings would have decided the war. Armies are not defeated automatically because a tank column reaches an important road or river. India had reserves, engineers could demolish crossings, airpower could attack columns, and logistics might have limited how far Pakistani armor could sustain itself. The attacker would have had to secure flanks, keep infantry and artillery moving, maintain fuel and ammunition, and defend the very routes it had used to advance. A deep thrust can frighten an enemy, but it can also expose the attacker. The road to Beas promised opportunity, not certainty. Still, the danger was real. If Pakistani armor had broken through the Asal Uttar position quickly enough, India would have faced hard choices under time pressure. Should reserves be pulled from other sectors? Should bridges be destroyed early, risking one's own movement, or held longer, risking enemy seizure? Should commanders counterattack the spearhead, or build a new line farther back? These decisions become harder when reports are incomplete and armored columns appear to be moving faster than headquarters can understand. A successful thrust does not need to conquer everything to impose strategic effect. It needs to create confusion faster than the defender can restore order. That was the promise Pakistan sought in the Khem Karan sector. The road never opened because the conditions for exploitation were taken away. Indian forces withdrew from exposed ground and built the defensive box around Asal Uttar. Engineers mined approaches and used water to soften fields. Infantry held villages and field positions that made the defensive zone difficult to bypass. Artillery punished concentrations and delays. Deccan Horse and 3rd Cavalry added armored firepower at moments when Pakistani tanks were slowed or exposed. Abdul Hamid and other anti-tank fighters showed how vulnerable separated tanks could become in close country. Each element mattered because each attacked the same thing, the forward rhythm of the Pakistani thrust. Without rhythm, the road to Beas became unreachable. This is the central operational lesson. A road on a map is not the same as a road in war. On a map, the line from Khem Karan toward deeper Punjab can look clear enough to invite bold planning. On the ground, that line passed through defended villages, wet fields, mines, artillery zones, and places where tanks could be seen and hit from concealment. A commander may intend to drive toward a river crossing, but the battlefield may force him to fight for every local approach long before the crossing appears. The defender's art is to make the attacker spend operational energy on tactical problems. At Asal Uttar, India turned the road to Beas into a sequence of tactical problems Pakistan could not solve quickly enough. Had the road opened, the wider war might have felt very different in the days before the ceasefire. Indian attention might have shifted sharply toward protecting the Beas-Sutlej line and preventing a deeper rupture in Punjab. Political pressure could have increased, public anxiety could have grown, and commanders on other fronts might have had to reconsider their plans. Pakistan might have gained a stronger bargaining position, or at least a dramatic counterweight to Indian pressure elsewhere. These possibilities explain why Asal Uttar became more than a local defensive success. It prevented a situation in which the war's balance could have been unsettled at speed. The battle mattered because it denied Pakistan the chance to test those possibilities. At the same time, a breakthrough might also have created serious difficulties for Pakistan. A deep armored force requires a secure supply line. Fuel trucks, ammunition columns, maintenance teams, recovery vehicles, and supporting infantry must all follow through the same contested ground. If the route behind the spearhead is narrow, mined, shelled, or threatened by Indian counterattack, the spearhead can become isolated. Air attacks may strike vehicles on roads. Bridges may be destroyed. A bold thrust can become a stranded thrust if its tail cannot keep up with its head. This is why armored warfare is so demanding. The glamorous part is the leading tank. The decisive question is whether the whole system behind that tank can survive long enough to exploit success. The counterfactual, therefore, deepens respect for both the opportunity and the failure. Pakistan's plan aimed at a real operational prize, and it is too easy to dismiss it simply because it failed. But the failure showed that a prize beyond the front line cannot be reached by armored confidence alone. Reconnaissance had to understand the defense. Engineers had to keep routes open. Infantry had to clear villages and protect tanks. Artillery had to suppress defenders at the right time. Commanders had to preserve tempo without driving blind into a trap. Logistics had to sustain movement. Too many of these requirements broke down or arrived too late. The road to Beas remained closed because the system required to open it never worked well enough. For India, the unopened road became a measure of defensive success. The loss of Khem Karan was real, but the greater disaster did not happen. Indian commanders and soldiers prevented the forward loss from becoming an operational rupture. This distinction matters in military education because wars are not scored only by towns taken or lost. They are shaped by what those gains make possible. Pakistan took ground but failed to unlock the deeper route. India yielded ground but preserved the depth that mattered. The defensive victory at Asal Uttar should be understood in those terms. It was not simply about destroying tanks. It was about protecting the operational interior of Punjab. The road to Beas also connects Asal Uttar to the long history of armored warfare from Cambrai onward. Tanks were created to break through tactical barriers and restore movement. Their great promise has always been that success at one point can spread into the enemy's rear faster than the enemy can respond. But the promise only becomes real when terrain, supply, command, and combined arms allow movement to continue. At Cambrai, early tank success could not be fully exploited. In later wars, mechanized forces succeeded when breakthrough and exploitation were joined. At Asal Uttar, Pakistan sought exploitation but became trapped in the breakthrough fight. The road beyond the battlefield remained visible in ambition but unreachable in practice. The importance of the road that never opened is that it shows the battle's true scale. Asal Uttar was not famous only because patents burned or because brave men held their ground. It was famous because those events prevented a larger operational crisis from unfolding. The fields around Asal Uttar became decisive because they stood between an armored thrust and the routes that could have carried danger deeper into India. The counterfactual should be handled carefully, but not avoided, because it explains why commanders took such risks and why the battle mattered beyond local memory. The road to Beas never opened, and in that failure lay the meaning of Asal Uttar. A fast offensive was stopped before it could become a war-shaping break.
You've been listening to Famous Tank Battles. These battles were never just about machines. They were about doctrine, terrain, firepower, logistics, and the hard problem of turning shock into victory. For more military history writing and books, visit militaryauthor.me. And for magazines, podcasts, and a massive archive of military photos and video, visit trackpads.com. Thanks for listening.